What would you do if you caught your own teacher trying to sabotage your standardized test, just to hand it off to one of her favorite students? Yeah, that actually happened to me. And let me tell you, this woman picked the wrong kid to mess with. I'm Mike, and this is the story of how one teacher's petty favoritism nearly backfired in spectacular fashion, and how I managed to outsmart her at her own game. This happened a long time ago, so I'll admit, it's one of those stories where there's probably no concrete proof left. But I remember every detail. It's burned into my memory. To really understand what went down, I need to start with a little backstory. I've always been really good at multiple choice tests. I wasn't the best student by any means. I usually averaged B's and C's. But I read a lot, and I've always had a knack for puzzles. That combo helped me breeze through tests with barely any effort. I'd ace the exams, skip the homework, and somehow still come out with decent grades. There was only one exception to this, my history teacher. She was clever. Her multiple choice tests were designed like traps. Out of 5 answers, 2 or even 3 would sound totally plausible. I couldn't rely on instinct and pattern recognition with her. I actually had to study. That class was the only one I ever failed, just barely. But back then, there was a policy in place that saved me. If you failed a class, you could retake the grade by doing a standardized government test. So I signed up, didn't study at all, and ended up scoring a B+. That result replaced my failing grade. Easy win. So yeah, when it came to standardized tests, I was confident. I had them figured out. Now, here's where the villain of our story comes in. My homeroom teacher. Let's call her Miss Karen Van Beeyock. Or just Miss Karen because honestly, the name fits too well. She was also the cheerleading coach. Remember that because it matters later. So one day, I'm on my way to homeroom when I sprain my ankle. Badly. I could barely walk, dragging myself up the stairs using the rails like I was in some kind of slow-motion horror scene. When I finally got to homeroom, I went straight to Miss Karen and told her I needed a nurse pass. Our school didn't allow us to go to the nurse without a signed pass from a teacher. And what did she say to a clearly injured student? I don't give nurse passes or bathroom passes? No joke. She refused. And this wasn't even a real class. Homeroom was just glorified attendance. I stood there, stunned, while my ankle throbbed. But I knew better than to argue with someone like her. So I limped to my desk, seething in pain and rage. When the bell finally rang, I climbed another flight of stairs to get to my Latin class. My Latin teacher, bless him, gave me a nurse pass the second I asked. When I got to the nurse, she didn't even ask me to pull up my pants. She could see the swelling through my jeans. My ankle was the size of a grapefruit. She gave me a crutch and sent me home right away. Keep in mind, this was before cell phones. We didn't have a car or money for a taxi, so I had to take the city bus, dragging myself along on that one crutch. When I got home, I told my dad everything. I thought I was mad, but his face turned red. He didn't say much, just helped me bandage my ankle while fuming silently. Then he asked if I'd be okay for a while. I said sure, and he left without another word. A few hours later, he came back. He sat down, looked me in the eye, and said, "Your teacher's not going to be giving you any more trouble." I had no idea what he did, but I was curious enough to test it. The next day, I hobbled into class with crutches. We had a pair at home, and I was determined to see if Miss Karen had really changed her tune. Halfway through homeroom, I crouched up to her desk and asked if I could go to the bathroom. She plastered on this fake sweet expression and said, "Sure, Jim, you can do whatever you want." That's not my real name, by the way, just using it for storytelling. At that moment, I knew whatever my dad did, it worked. But that was just the warm-up act. Fast forward to standardized testing week. Students were split up and sent to different classrooms for the big tests. I ended up in a room with about 5 or 6 honor students. And a ton of cheerleaders and football players. And guess who our proctor was? Yep, Miss Karen. She walked in with this smug, I'm in charge energy, and immediately gave us a bizarre instruction. She told us to fill in our names on the test forms, but not to press too hard with our pencils. And, more importantly, she told us not to bubble in our names. She said she would do it for us. She claimed this was to prevent damage to the test forms, and once we finished writing our names, she'd start the timer and let us begin. Now I'm not stupid. I looked down at the test. Right there on the front page, it said for administrator use only in one section. But the part where students were clearly supposed to fill in their names? It specifically said that students must complete that section. I smelled something fishy, and I was not about to hand over control of my test to Miss Karen, so I ignored her. I bubbled in my own name, just like the instructions said. She saw me doing it and snapped, "I told you not to do that!" I looked up and calmly replied, "I'm just following the test instructions." She glared at me, and with venom in her voice, she said, "Fine, if you want to fail." Then she stormed off. The test went on. I crushed it. I knew it. I didn't even need to wait for the results. When they came back, sure enough, I had missed only 2 questions. That landed me in the 99th percentile. But here's the thing that still haunts me a little. I know what she was trying to do. She was planning to swap one of our honor student tests, probably mine, with one of her underperforming cheerleaders or football players. Maybe to boost their GPA. Maybe to make them eligible to stay on the team. Maybe even to keep up school appearances. Whatever her motive, it was shady as hell. And I wonder how many of those other kids, the real honor students, walked out thinking they had failed, while a cheerleader somewhere celebrated their sudden genius. So yeah, that's how I nearly had my standardized test hijacked by a cheerleading coach with an ego problem. If I hadn't followed my gut, who knows what could have happened to my academic record? What would you have done in my place? Would you have trusted her? Let me know in the comments, and if this story made you shake your head in disbelief, or laugh out loud, drop a like, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe for more wild true stories like this one.